Hello, hello. Hi there. My name is Erika Barriga, and I'm a watercolor illustrator and painter, and I teach how to watercolor paint as well. Welcome to Flux Imagery. So today I wanted to talk about uh, if you ever wanted to start watercolor painting. And I have an art club and it's all about learning how to watercolor paint, starting as a beginner, and just getting really those foundations. And a longtime friend of mine was a part of the membership, and her name is Chisomo, and she's here today, and I'm talking to her. We're just chatting it up. So I want to introduce you to her, and I'm gonna have her tell you more about her, and she's awesome. So.
Hi, I'm Chisomo Fajardo. I'm a life coach. I'm a creative designer. I design all the things, is what I say. I've always been creative since I was a little girl, drawing, painting, clay, making things. And then my career was as a fashion designer. Then I had my kids, and then I transitioned those skills into other things like graphic design, web design, making planners, and that the self development that was needed to do all that and to start a business led me into becoming a life coach and helping people with their mindset.
That's so incredible. That's so outside the box. I love it. I love it so much. Just helping other people, especially other women, figure things out because we need all the help we can get sometimes, right? It's crazy. So I want to talk about your watercolor journey and what first drew you to watercolor painting.
I had done back at college. I'd done art and I'd done watercolor, acrylics, different things. But when I started working, this is what happens when you're creative. When you start working in and you start being creative as a job, you find that you're not so creative in your own personal life. It becomes almost like a bit of a chore, a bit of work. So when I became a fashion designer, I realized I actually just stopped painting and drawing, and I was doing more like CAD work using Illustrator to design. So at this point, my kids had started school, and I had started doing my business, but I realized like again, most of my creativity was all on the computer. It was again designing social media graphics and
Hmm.
web pages. So I had felt like I wanted to do something with my hands again. And yeah, I think I still kept collecting art equipment over the years, and I had bought some watercolors, and I was like, oh, it'd be good to just get back into something creative, but on paper with my hands again.
Yeah, screens can just take over and there's nothing like just feeling something tangible. It's like what is actually real. That's
Yeah.
that's so true. I feel exactly the same way. How did you feel the first time that you picked up a brush?
Well, it'd been a while.
Yeah.
It had been a while. I think like with my kids, I'd got like the paintbrushes out and the poster paints and just like, doing a bit of a school with them. But I hadn't really sat down and sort of like tried to do a painting per se. Like actually like I'm trying to do something on purpose. So it had been a while. So yeah, it was like a bit rusty.
Hmm.
Start again.
Totally. What does creativity mean for you at this stage of life since you started a long time ago? What does it mean now?
Yeah, I think creativity essentially, I think it's really about creating beauty. I think that's a really key part of it. And what beauty means is, again, it's in the eye of the beholder. So, what's beautiful to me is not going to be what's beautiful to someone else. Someone else is going to love hard lines, dark colors. So, I think, again, it's very individual. So, I think what creativity for me is not going to be the same for someone else. So I think that's the thing where I don't. There's no rules. I think
Hmm.
there aren't rules to it, um, and I think it's letting these ideas that we have on the inside out. So being creative, that could be with numbers. You've got these like you love numbers, and there's like patterns. And you see patterns with numbers and doing some like analytics. That I think that's also being creative. So again, I don't think it just means like art and painting and things like that. I think it's being creative in your thinking, creative in problem solving, finding solutions.
Hmm.
So yeah, finding. I think creativity is like making things better, making things beautiful, and finding solutions.
Hmm. Yeah, I noticed that when I create more, it opens up a part of me that can figure other things out even better just because I have that freedom. Like I've tried to think outside the box and just like not be so analytical with things.
Mm.
So yeah, it's crazy. The more you kind of let yourself go and be more creative, what it does in other aspects of your life, you know?
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
cool. Yeah, it definitely changes depending on who you are and what it means to you. What was your biggest question or fear when starting with watercolor?
Um, I feel like I just forgotten how. I think I did have some really cheap colors that probably didn't help when I first tried, because
Hmm.
you watch videos and people are like that they've got sort of doing like a nice wash and the colors are just like bleeding into each other really lovely, and I
Hmm.
tried to do that with these like colors and it just didn't even bleed. It was just very chalky, so I think it was like, oh, like this, like I don't know what to do again.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's like you see things like on videos, and then it's like you want to create that. So it's like yeah, it's a bit of a learning curve. So I think I love it when like you've got one color and then they sort of like merge it into like another color.
Yeah, that ratio of the paper and the paint and the water is like so nuanced, but once you get it, you get it. But at first it's just like, okay, what's going
Blob.
off here? Yeah, it's going off the rails, right? It's crazy. Um, what tools or supplies made the biggest difference when you were just starting out? Was it when you switched, when you upgraded?
Yeah, I did get slightly, they still weren't like top range or anything, but I did get better watercolors and also the paper as well. Because again, like I had bought cheap stuff because I was doing it with, initially I was just doing stuff with my 3, 5 year old, so it wasn't that important. But then, yeah, I did get some better paper. It had like a nice grain, and that did really make a difference.
Hmm. So, if you had to go back and give yourself one tip as a beginner, what would it be?
I think it's just like being a bit okay with the experimentation and when things look a bit like messy to start with.
Hmm.
Like, and yeah, just knowing that you won't recreate something you've seen online, like in your, in your first few tries. And
Yeah,
that, I think
trying
be
to
okay with
duplicate watercolor period it just isn't going to happen. Even if you have like that watercolor mix of paint and then you love that color and you run out of that color and you try to mix it again, like forget it. And that just
yeah,
makes you appreciate like what you have at the moment, really,
yeah,
all the time with watercolor, right? It's
yeah,
it's wild.
yeah. It's definitely it's its own thing, if that makes sense. It sort of like does, even though you try and steer it, it still does what it wants to do.
Yeah, you
So I
can't
think you
control
have
that.
to, yeah, it's not like say oils or acrylic where you can be very focused and is this is exactly how it's going to be. So I think it is a bit more of a like a softer art where it is just like things blurring into each other, mistakes, but I think that's part of the charm of watercolor.
Yeah, that's my favorite part. I love how dreamlike it is and how you can't harness it. How has painting challenged your beliefs about yourself or your abilities?
I think it is that thing when you go to something new or something you haven't done in a while, and you just feel that frustration, isn't it? Like, let's be real, that frustration of not being good,
Hmm.
or things not coming out how you can picture them in your mind, and there being that frustration between like this is what I want to do and this is where I'm at. And I think in life it's the same, that you experience that when you're working on a new goal, a new project. There is like a growth. There's a big growth period, and the start of a project is like can be really hard, or like the middle bit. But it is just knowing that it's just a process. It's a process whenever you're doing anything new or you want to go to the next level, even when you know something, but you want to go to the next level. It's that process of like learning, not starting again, but not being as good as you were. And I think it's just like resilience, grace to yourself. Having that growth mindset where it's like, okay, I can't do this technique yet, or I can't do this. I haven't got this skill yet, but I am working on it. I'm developing it, and I'm going to get better.
Hmm. Yeah, for me, I feel like it's very humbling.
Yeah,
Uh, it's like we will see things and think, oh, you'll see things that are even sped up if you're watching someone even paint. And then you think, oh, I can do that, that's easy. And then you start to try and do it, and you don't realize that they edited out a lot of like the mixing and how many times they've been painting it or things like that. And you just think you're going to go from that stage to that stage, and it's kind of hard. So it's like really humbling to understand, oh, this is the real time frame. Ah,
yeah.
okay. And understand the
It's
process.
it's not it's not 10 minutes. It's like 10 hours.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And all the thinking that you're thinking through, the mental gymnastics of like planning it. It's like, oh, that stroke took a little bit and those colors came together, but like you mix those colors in order for you took a while to mix those colors and figure things out before you actually like painted. And when you paint, it's like that's like two strokes and it comes together, but it's like you kind of plan those things out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a wild process. Um, let's see. What would you say to someone who thinks I'm just not an artist?
Yeah, and that's the thing where I do think being creative is in everyone, and it just looks different. Because I think again we think artist is like someone who's painting, drawing, but I just think anytime we are using that inner, I don't know how to call it, but like an inner spark, like the inner inspiration that we get, that I think
Hmm.
that God put in us all, and you get that inner inspiration, and it's like I just want to express that. To me, that's
Yep.
been an artist. Yeah,
I completely agree. I think it spans all aspects. Whenever if I see somebody doing something that's totally like not what you would typically think artistically. I do think they are very creative in thinking of that, of it's hard to explain, but it's not just painting or an art box. Yeah,
yeah,
I feel like everyone's creative. And I will make them see it. Like you are creative. They're like, no, all I do is work with numbers. I'm like, that's creative. It just is.
yeah.
Do you notice any overlap between watercolor and your work as a life coach?
I think it's that process of yeah, starting a project, starting something new, and the process of learning or planning. Because I think whenever you're if if you're coaching or coaching yourself, it's because you're trying to achieve something. There's a goal, an outcome you're working towards. So part of that will be like, what is the outcome? What is the goal? What's the vision? When you come into paint, it's again, what is the outcome? What's the goal? What's the vision? What's that thing I can see in my mind that I want to work towards? So then it's that process of getting clear on what it is, somehow getting it onto paper. So maybe like that'll be rough sketches in watercolor, in with working with a goal, it would be like making some steps, maybe doing brainstorm about like what's needed to achieve this. And then it is that mindset thing of going through it when you're in that messy middle where it's like you've started and now that initial excitement's gone and you're like, I want to finish, but
Mm-hmm.
that messy bit, I think that bit is so hard when I'm painting and when I'm in a goal or a project, and that's when you have like your resilience needs to show up and remind yourself like it's going to be worth it at the end. So you keep
Mm-hmm.
going.
Mm-hmm. I love that you talk about the messy middle because that's what we don't ever see. We just see starting a project and then a bright and shiny project at the end, and that middle is not cute. If you really focus, it's like, uh-oh, this looks nothing like what I envisioned, and you just got to keep
Yeah,
going and actually keep the end goal in mind, but still enjoy the journey. That's what's the beauty of watercolor, and that's the beauty of, these other projects too, especially in your life coaching, to see you work through those goals and then see those epiphanies on the people that you work with, when they finally things click for them. That's pretty
yeah.
cool. What's one watercolor win you're really proud of?
I think just being um not yeah like not letting it just kind of be how it wants to be, because I in life, I'll be honest, it's like I do like things to be a set way. Like I'm like, this is how I want it to be, and I can be a bit rigid, and that is something that I'm like aware of and was working on. Um, and when I first started trying to do watercolors, I was like trying to, I guess, replicate things and have things look a certain way. But then I just started just to let the brush do what it wants to do, and I would just use different brushes and just basically mostly mark make. I might have a maybe something that's sort of drawn, and then just mark making, and I've
Hmm.
really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed
Hmm.
that process. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I used to think that everyone automatically knew what that end result was going to look like, and they worked towards that like completely. And the more that I learned from other artists and just on my own, that the things that I didn't plan for were like my favorite bits. And then it just comes together. Like you just kind of need to be happy
Yeah.
with what happens. Because if you try to plan and just keep nitpicking and nitpicking, it usually ends up being something that you don't really like.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
overworked it.
When I can just paint and know and be like, it's just going to turn out to whatever it turns out, being okay. I guess just surrendering to that. That
Yeah,
is more enjoyable for me now.
exactly. Yeah, agree completely. Has painting taught you anything about patience, progress, or playfulness?
Yeah, definitely patience. It's definitely patience, because even like painting like a just an A4 piece of paper, I think that's like letter size in the US. Um, like that can take me like about 2 hours, and mostly just mark making, so not even like being very like detailed or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it's in my head, I'm always like, this should just be like 20 minutes, but it's not, it's hours. So yeah, I'm a person who gets the idea and wants the end result like as soon as I can,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't do that, like you just have to go through the process. So yeah, definitely a lot about patience. And again, like I said, like letting go of control and just being like experimenting with the brushes and the colors, and just
Mm-hmm.
yeah, experimenting and just trying stuff out.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's like a constant tug. It's a constant like, you're being too controlling. You're being impatient. Like, let it just flow. Like, I don't ever. That never stops for me. Is that kind of like the same with you? It's like you keep having to check yourself. That lesson like over and over and over, but it's good reminders. What does success look for you as a creative person?
This is always changing, and it's different now. And at the moment, I feel like I'm having to redefine it again. So I'm not sure right now, and I'm like exploring what that would look like.
Hmm.
Um, but I think it's really about getting to share what's on the inside of me, whether that is like in the publicly, like creating blog posts, making videos, content, whether it's like coaching, teaching, or whether that is like in my family or in my local community or work, but just sharing those things that inspire me, that I'm interested in, being able to actually explore them, and make space for that. I think for me that is success. At one point, it was tied with making an income. So when I was younger, it was just like, if I get to be a fashion designer and actually like make an income from this, like that will be success. And then I did that, and
Hmm.
then I was like, had my kids, and then it was like, ah, this isn't success for me anymore. So yeah, it's definitely changed. So right now, I don't feel like I have to make income from my creativity in the way that I have in the past,
Yeah.
and that's quite freeing as well. So a lot of my
Hmm.
creativity is more like interior design and doing stuff in my house. I'm loving it.
Hmm. Yeah. So many non-monetary wins, right? It's cool. That's awesome. Yeah. Um, this was awesome. This was so good. I'm so happy that you said yes to
Ah,
being here and chatting about this stuff. I think it's so important. and I love what you're doing, and I wanted to share. You definitely need to follow if you don't know if you don't know Chisomo, you need to follow her on Instagram. I'm gonna put up your Instagram account. So one moment here. It's so beautiful. She's so colorful. I love it. And she just represents everything that she is about. Dreaming, being multi-passionate, being heart-led, all about creative. Shout out to the introverts. I love it so much. So it starts with the dream is her handle on Instagram. And I'm going to bring you back. All right. Is there anything else that you want to say about watercolor painting?
Well, I think just in life with anything, just to just have fun, try new things, experiment, let life, let art, let creativity be an experiment, even when you're working on your goals or dreams, or if you're trying to start a business or something, treat it as an experiment and just see what happens.
I love that. Thanks, Chi. You're the best.
You're welcome.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye. Thank you for having
Bye.
me.